From Greater Sandton to the rest of the world, this is the Sandton Times Hour with your host,
Alexander.
A warm welcome wherever you find yourself. This is the Sandton Times Hour. It's edition 240. It's week 17 of 2026. I'm Alexander Leitner. And if you're listening for the very first time, it would be great to hear from you. And if you're a regular listener in Sandton, South Africa, or somewhere across the globe, be it online or on air, I bring you well wishes from what I fondly call Sandton Land, or Africa's richest square mile. As always, I'm happy to be sharing the next hour with you, bringing you all the latest happening in South Africa from the vantage point of the country's economic engine, Sandton. For those who have followed the show for an extended period of time, we like to look at a variety of interesting lifestyle topics, so make yourself comfortable over the next hour for some easy yet interesting listening, I hope. I've just returned from Cape Town, where the World Travel Market Africa took place, one of the major travel and tourism expos in South Africa. I had a chance to be part of some panel discussions on the topic of travel and tourism, such an important sector in South Africa. And I've also brought back some interesting interviews that I've done, which I will most probably share with you over the coming weeks. Joining me behind the mixing desk again is Vincenzo. Good to see you again. And pressing all the right buttons, I hope. And it should be a good hour. We've got some great stuff lined up, so let's have a look at what you can expect in the next hour. In a bit, we kick things off with a bit of motoring, as we always do in our Sandton Drive feature, and I'm joined by a fellow motoring enthusiast to look at the VW Golf 8.5. Was it 8.5? I'm not quite sure how they name these things. Well, buckle up for that. Then there's a musical that has just wrapped up in Cape Town and is now making its way up to Johannesburg. I'll be finding out a bit more. As always, I then catch up with our regular entertainment commentator to take a look at the latest entertainment to watch this week. And finally, I chat to the owner of a South African museum dedicated to one of the most legendary maritime accidents in history. And there's a South African connection. Did someone say iceberg? Well, stick around and find out more. It's a great hour up ahead, and I would love to hear from you, and maybe we get a chance to share some of your feedback, some of your comments. So get in touch, send through your questions, comments, and feedback to editor@sandtontimes.co.za. Make sure you follow the Sandton Times on social media, whichever your preferred platform is. There's Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, X. I mean, there's so much choice. Just follow the Sandton Times there. If you want to get in touch on the WhatsApp line, 084 Sandton. That's 084 726 3866. And if you're listening outside of South Africa, it's +27 84 726 3866. Then don't forget to visit the website sandtontimes.co.za for some additional reading. And if you're not part of the podcast community, well, make sure you subscribe. Be part of the Sandton Times Hour. You'll find it on all major podcast platforms, whichever one you prefer. It's free for nooks, and you can catch up on previous interviews and chats there as well.
Follow the Sandton Times on social media @Sandton Times.
There are a few badges in motoring that carry quite the same quiet authority as the Volkswagen Golf, and for nearly 5 decades, it has been the benchmark. The car that doesn't just shout the loudest, but somehow always says the most. With the arrival of the Volkswagen Golf 8.5, Wolfsburg's perennial icon returns with a sharper suit, smarter tech, and just enough attitude to remind everyone why it still matters. But in a world sprinting towards electrification and SUVs that seem to be growing by the minute, especially coming from China, where does the Golf fit into today's automotive conversation? Has it evolved enough to keep loyalists engaged while tempting a new generation of drivers raised on touchscreens and torque figures? Well, I had a chance to test drive this model in Cape Town for a few days and was well impressed with what this German legend still has to offer. But joining me to unpack the thinking behind the latest iteration, from design tweaks to digital overhauls, and to understand whether the Golf 8.5 is simply a mid-cycle refresh or a quiet masterclass in staying relevant, is Matthew Kanniah, automotive and lifestyle content creator. And Matthew, welcome to the Sandton Drive on the Sandton Times Hour.
It is a pleasure to be here. Can't wait to unpack this car and explain all the good stuff for you and your listeners.
Well, Matthew, let's launch straight into it. I mean, I was quite amazed that they called it the 8.5 and not just go straight from 8 to 9, but I suppose 9 in German means no, so maybe that wasn't a good move.
Yeah, well, generally, cars are generally not one life cycle, and the great thing for no one who knows who's listening is you have a car, so it's obviously the Golf 8, And now 3 to 4 years in, they have sort of a refresh and they call it the 0.5, especially with Golf. So this is basically the facelifted version of the Golf 8, and they've rightly called it the Golf 8.5. After this, it'll be the Golf 9. So for now, our facelift is 8.5.
The Golf has been an iconic car. I mean, you speak to any motoring enthusiast, even people who aren't necessarily motoring enthusiasts, and they'll know the VW Golf. Why do you think it stood the test of time and has been such an iconic car on South African roads?
It's just been a good, reliable car. I mean, this car traces its, roots back to the City Golf. The Golf has been C-segment, so basically compact car, small family car. It's been the car that's been able to transport people and families in a very economical way. It was a small hatchback with a small engine. It had 4 doors and it could seat a family of 5. And the whole premise of the car was basically, it was the people's car. It wasn't meant to be super luxurious. It wasn't meant to be super cheap. It was affordable for the everyday person, and they could put their whole entire family there. They could road trip, they can go to work, etc., etc. But it's just been that good formula. It's been affordable transportation for the person who's essentially back then getting out of public transport.
What do you think of this facelift that VW has now introduced? I mean, the one thing that first stands out when you first switch on the car, when you just unlock it, is that they've got this incredible light-up LED show that kind of kicks off when the badge in the front lights up and the lights around the car just sort of come to life. It looks more dramatic at night than it does during the day, but it's still a nice little novelty.
It's a pretty car. Look, I will say that. It's a sad car because it's part of a breed of car and his competitors that is slowly dying off. You've got the Ford Focus, but obviously Ford have decided to go full commercial, so they don't offer that car in South Africa. Then you've got the Renault Megane, again, same story. Then there's the Peugeot 308, the Hyundai i30. All those cars are kind of just slowly being killed off because cross SUVs are coming in and killing this segment. So it's quite refreshing to know that VW still offer this Golf, which is basically a bigger version of the Polo. And with it, it comes a premium host of features. So it's got a very nice light strip on the front. And now with the 8.5, you've got the badge that illuminates at night. It's got all the luxurious features that you love in a car. And it's meant to be premium, but not too plush because it's not going after the Mercedes-Benzes and the BMWs. It's still priced very well and priced quite competitively, but it does have all the tech that you would want in a car.
And yet they're still having to compete with this influx of Chinese vehicles that we've got coming into South Africa. I mean, when you get into a VW, you still can feel that German finish and that German solid quality. There's no doubt about it. But yet, I think in this market where the lines are getting more and more blurred in terms of what's coming in from the east in terms of vehicles, it must be very difficult to try and compete at this point.
It definitely is. I think they are seeing a lot of pressure from the Chinese, and the Chinese are offering a lot of car. And they're also coming into price-conscious consumers, which is people who can't necessarily afford to get themselves into a more expensive car because the prices are quite, exorbitant now across the range. So it is quite tough. But I think with VW and with a lot of the other legacy brands, if you call it that, they have a lot of history and they've got something that a lot of the Chinese don't have, which is they've got long foot standing within the consumer. They've got a trusted and reliable brand. They know that this brand has been here for a very long time. They know that it's reliable, it's got parts, it's got availability. And I think when you're purchasing a car, essentially, you want to purchase something that you can trust and knows and stands the test of time. When you look at it for your day-to-day items, you'll look for the stuff that's generally cheaper. But when it comes to more expensive electronics or something that's going to be in your household or your life for a very long time, like let's say it's a phone or a watch or a TV, you want to go for a trusted brand. Why? Because quality comes with life expectancy that's going to be a lot longer than the cheaper brands.
So what are we talking about in terms of variance and pricing, Matthew? What can people look out for?
So there's 4 variants of this car. So there's the Life Plus, the R-Line, and the R-Line Plus. So the base model is 580,900 Rand. And that basically is just a plain Jane Golf. It doesn't come with any sort of sporty looks. But obviously the one that you and I have tested, that was the R Line Plus. That's 688,000. And that comes with the Golf R aesthetic. So it's got the very nice Golf R wheels. It's got the Golf R body kit. It's got R-line seats. And what you get is a lot of car for that sort of money, if you can call it that. But still very, very nice car. It does come with a 1.4 turbo engine. And that's probably the gem of this car, because people will look at it and say it's just a 1.4. It only has 110 kilowatts and 250 newtons. They've put this motor in a lot of their other VW cars. But for some reason in the Golf, they've tuned it so well, it doesn't feel like a 1.4. It feels like a very strong NA 2-liter. It's got a lot of pull. The gears are very smooth. And even with people in it, it's got ample power. So it's a very, very nice car, a complete package. And to be honest, if I'm looking for a daily driver that's going to get me from A to B, it doesn't have to have tons of power. And it just does the job of getting me to work, getting to see friends. For the 5-year, 100,000 kilometers that I'll possibly own this is the perfect daily driver, in my opinion.
Well, let me tell you, I enjoyed the drive. The car certainly has a presence on the road, and the Volkswagen Golf 8.5. If you're a VW fan, if you enjoy that German quality on the road, and if it's in your price range, well, maybe this is one to look at. And Matthew, Kanniah, automotive and lifestyle content creator, it's been such a pleasure having you on the Sandton Drive on the Sandton Times Hour.
Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to talking about the next car with you.
From Sandton skyline to South Africa's shoreline,
This is
the Sandton Times Hour.
From Rodeo Drive to right here in South Africa, one of the most iconic love stories of the 90s has officially stepped off the screen and onto the stage. Pretty Woman captured the hearts around the world with Julia Roberts and Richard Gere, and now Pretty Woman, the musical, is bringing that same magic, glamour and feel-good nostalgia to local audiences. And after a successful run on Broadway and the West End, the show officially made its South African debut, firstly in Cape Town at the Artscape Opera House, before heading to Sandton's Monte Cassino Teatro later this month. What makes this production even more special? It's powered by an all-South African cast, including stellar cast members Leah, Marie and Christopher Jaftha, delivering a story of love, transformation, and a little bit of Hollywood fantasy, all backed by music from rock legend Bryan Adams, believe it or not. Whether you're into it for nostalgia, the music, or just a joyful night at the theatre, this is one of the shows that promises exactly that, a proper escape from reality. So joining us now to talk about bringing Pretty Woman, the musical, to South African stages, the response so far are Leah Marie and Christopher Jaftha. And the two of you, welcome to the Sandton Times Hour.
Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for having us.
It's wonderful to have you on. Now, just to make sure we allocate the roles accordingly, Christopher, you're playing millionaire wheeler dealer Edward Lewis, which was performed by Richard Gere in the movie originally.
Yes, indeed. That's the character that I'm playing. I'm playing obviously alongside the beautiful Leah Marie. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far. It's been extremely challenging, and a lot of hard work and sweat has gone into it. But, you know, under the leadership of Rusty Murray and Will Van Dyke, and then obviously Showtime, it's been an absolutely amazing process. We've been able to stretch ourselves and really get into the nitty-gritty of it and bring something so special, so iconic to life.
Well, I'm looking forward to your performance because I saw you in Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. I think you played Pharaoh in that. And what a great performance. I'd never seen the musical before, so it was my first time seeing it. And I think you really brought the energy, and I had so many of those songs stuck in my head for weeks afterwards. But well done. So I'm really looking forward to your part in Pretty Woman. Then Leah Marie. Oh, my goodness. Have I wanted to speak to you for a long time? This feels like I'm having another moment of My Fair Lady, and you did such a tremendous job in that musical.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate that.
You're playing Vivian Ward, which does feel a little bit like a whole nother Fair Lady story all over again. It's sort of like brought into, the 2000s.
Absolutely. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. Eliza, Vivian, they're both based on the same beautiful source material, which is Pygmalion. And so it's so exciting to get to play Vivian, who is like this modern age Eliza, this unrefined woman who's got a lot of heart, a lot of youth and a lot of passion. And she wants to make her life better in a very fated way. She comes across a man, and this man helps her to realize her true potential. It's such a joy to get to play this character in this modern context.
What do you think makes the story resonate with audiences over so many decades? I mean, this movie is now probably a good 20, 30 years old. And to this day, audiences are still wanting to watch it, watch reruns. I don't think it's been remade yet. So they're still watching the original Julia Roberts and Richard Gere version.
Yeah, I think for me my immediate response is it's because it's about love and it's about redemption. I think we all walk through life seeking that, like, what I describe as a kaboom moment, that moment when you go, oh, this is what I've been waiting for. And that's what rom-coms have, right? That moment of the long-awaited kiss between the two people who've been waiting to get together, or the moment where the woman realizes what she's worth. And I think that, you know, this redemptive love story is the very thing that lives so parallel to all of our lives. And I mean, I love a rom-com. You know, romance is such a beautiful thing. I love love. And so I think that there's so many people who look to Pretty Woman and see these themes and see these two characters who are in two completely opposite worlds, and against all odds, they find each other at their core, and they get to understand each other, and they unlock these beautiful parts of each other. This idea that we can be more than our circumstances, I think, is a huge theme. And I mean, it's also, that's very much at the core what Pygmalion is about as well, and what My Fair Lady is about. So I think that's why this story just keeps getting retold and retold in so many different beautiful ways.
Well, a fun one to do if you get a chance, there's a great series on Netflix called The Movies That Made Us. And there's a great episode, I think in season 2, about Pretty Woman, how it almost became a movie that wasn't made, and how impossible it was to make, and how it started off being a really dark story, then got taken over by Disney, reinvented. At parts there weren't scripts for the movie, so the director just said, be funny and action, and that's it. And then people had to piece together a scene. So it's amazing how something like that has now become such a classic. Christopher, had you seen the movie before, and do you feel that that sort of influenced the way that you brought your character to life for the musical?
So I think I may have seen a little bit of it when it was much younger, but I don't think I would have watched the whole thing because of its age restriction, and my parents were always really very careful with what it is that I consumed with my eyes and my ears. When I got the role, I definitely watched it a good couple of times, and I definitely took some little bits of inspiration from the movie. Because it's stage, it's so different, you know what I mean? Of course, it's a play on stage, but then it's a sitcom on stage, but then it's a musical on stage, and all of those three genres have different elements to it. Film is much smaller. So, we're basically doing a sitcom, which is TV in front of an audience. We're doing a play, we're doing a musical, and then we're doing the film. So the 3 or 4 different mediums, it was quite complex to, well, at least for me, to get the synergy going, because you've got to think of the various techniques and aspects that those require. But then for this character, Edward Lewis, I mean, like we know, this movie was never written to be a musical. So everybody was thinking, how are we going to get this movie onto stage? And I think a lot of people had preconceived ideas as to what it would be. And I think some people thought, oh my gosh, it's going to flop. It's not going to be really great. But with North America Live and Showtime, Rusty Mowry, Will Van Dyke, they are just absolute geniuses. Obviously, we've got the music that was written by Bryan Adams. The way it was created was just so magical. It was absolutely beautiful to do, but it was a big challenge as well, because you'd have to blend all of those mediums and try and make it what it is, which is a musical. And the way it was done is spectacular. You haven't seen it yet. For everybody who has been completely blown away by it. And they just, their expectations, because they had none, or maybe they had really low expectations of it because they didn't see how they'd be able to fit Pretty Woman onto stage, has just been completely blown away. We were blown away when we started working. The first week we saw what it was going to be like, and then we started, we hadn't even gotten to the stage or anything yet, but just with the various movements, with how technical it is, having a pinky toe on this X while singing that note, having this finger on that part of the chord, and it was just completely, it's so well done. And I think what makes it so timeless is obviously the clever script that we just obviously now put onto stage. So everything, I'll be stealing Leah Marie's words here, everything's just bigger, bolder, better. So if you love the movie, which is an iconic classic, the stage version just reminds you why you love the movie in the first place.
Leah, we've had some incredible productions in South Africa. We've seen some amazing performances by South African cast, from Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. We've had the Rocky Horror Picture Show, Cats. We've had My Fair Lady. What has the response been like from South African audiences based on the performances that you've already done in Cape Town?
Cape Town audiences so far have been loving this show. And I think that it's a really great testament to the strength of the film, which is always such a joy. You know, there's so much about this musical that is new or fresh, like the music. You know, that's the largest aspect that audiences haven't seen yet. It's not, the score itself is not super well known, but the love for the film and the love for Bryan Adams is a huge drawing card. So that's the thing that's getting people into the theater, is the movie and the music. But what's been incredible is that when the audiences leave, what they stick with is the talent that we have here. I mean, I watch this cast every single night. Obviously, I'm on stage with Chris, and I get to watch him do an incredible performance, as well as the other leads like Tian and Dani and Tutor and Bo as well, who's a real crowd favorite. And if you don't know why, you need to come watch the show and see why, because he's just comedic genius. I get to watch this ensemble tackle these dance numbers and these huge, big production numbers. And there really just is so much talent in this country. And it just makes my heart so proud that people come for this American product and they sit in South African audiences, they sit in South African theaters, they come together in the masses, 1,800 people every single night, and they watch the show and they walk away saying, wow, I'm proud to be South African. That for me is the biggest gift that we can give to our industry. This, you know, really creating an atmosphere and creating an audience for theater. That is the thing that, you know, Netflix and all these streaming platforms kind of pose as a threat to. It's getting people out to dress up and put on the red dress, or, you know, put on the blonde wig and dress up as Vivian and come watch the show. That's the kind of thing that theater thrives on, and audiences have just been loving that. They've been eating it up. Yeah, it's just been such a joy. And I think like getting to hear the audience, I feel like they're really enjoying the show. They're laughing, they're singing along at the end of the show with the curtain call. So yeah, I think that this show has really gotten people quite literally off their feet and into, like, immersed in this theater experience.
Chris, I know that Bryan Adams will be in town during your Johannesburg performance. Any chances he might pop in to have a watch, or is that a state secret?
I'm pretty sure. I don't know. We don't know yet, but I'm pretty sure that I don't think he'd pass on the opportunity to come and see a all South African cast play his music and obviously play this iconic love story. I know that he's been a part of some of the performances in the States. I can't remember if it was the first cast or in 2018 or just before that. It could have been Chicago as well, where it first kicked off. But I don't see why he wouldn't come through. So yeah, that would be something to look forward to.
That certainly would be something to look forward to. And as you wrap up your Cape Town tour, you welcome Johannesburg audiences, 24th of April to the 31st of May at the Teatro. Put all the details up on the Sandton Times website. And Christopher Jaftha, it's been absolutely fabulous having you on, as well as Leah Marie, both in Pretty Woman, the musical. And thanks for making time to be on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
The best of Sandton and beyond.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
Heading into the second half of the Sandton Times Hour, my name is Alexander Leipner, and if there's anything that sounded interesting, you didn't get all the details, but you want to find out a little bit more, well, hop onto the website, sandtontimes.co.za, and check out this week's show notes. You can find every edition of the Sandton Times Hour on the website with some additional reading, a breakdown of everything we've discussed, phone numbers, email addresses, maybe some additional links, and some additional reading for you. Also, make sure that you follow the Sandton Times on social media for some additional content, as well as the WhatsApp number. Make sure you save it 084 Sandton. That's 084 726 3866, and that's your exclusive line to the Sandton Times Hour. It's time to connect with Tat Wolfen, as we always do every single week around about this time, to chat about all things entertainment. And Tat, this week, we're taking a look at all things streaming.
Alex, there's a couple of things I want to mention about streaming. First up, I want to just talk about a little thing that I find interesting, and that is that Westerns are very popular on the streaming channels.
Okay.
But as you know, Westerns have not been popular in cinema for decades. And I'm just wondering why that split exists. And is it because Westerns are popular amongst older men who tend not to frequent cinemas? So that's just the thought I wanted to put out there.
All right.
But I also wanted to talk about an intriguing 3-part true crime series on Netflix called Amy Bradley is Missing.
Okay.
And it tells us the real story of a family that had gone on this cruise with their son and their daughter, who were, I guess, in their sort of early 20s and that kind of age range. And Amy, their daughter, just went missing on a cruise ship. Mm-hmm. Now, that's intriguing because, if you go missing on land, well, you might have been kidnapped, you might be 3,000 kilometers away, but so what are the options on a ship? And all these different theories emerge. Did she just leap off the ship? Did she do herself in? Well, her family knew her better than that. They said that, that's not the kind of thing she would have done. And I'm not even going to go into all the different theories that emerge, but it certainly is intriguing. It's called Amy Bradley is Missing, and it's a three-parter.
I know we've been talking about this entire debacle that's unfolding with Showmax and MultiChoice. What's the latest on that? Has that now been wrapped up? Is that now on the move?
Well, it's very interesting because Showmax as a brand is going to cease existing, okay? But apparently they are going to move its content across into their DSTV streaming package. I think there are a lot of Showmax shows that people have found interesting, documentaries, series, stuff like that. And from what I understand, and this is only from what I understand because it's not very clear, I think that the Showmax brand itself will continue running, but on those channels. I certainly hope that a lot of their documentaries continue, under the Showmax brand. Look, there have been some that have been ghastly, but they've also made some good documentaries, such as ones about business scandals and things in South Africa. So, I hope that they carry on making those. Look, there are a lot of things that I've liked about Showmax, and you know that over the months. I like the fact that they have access to all the big studios. And as a result, you get a good spread of stuff. Like in the States, you'll just have Peacock, which is just Paramount. That's actually a benefit about streaming in South Africa. Because we have fewer streaming channels, they do encompass more studios. So, for example, Disney Plus will have like a subsection National Geographic, and they'll have a Hulu channel, and they have ESPN, which they also carry on Disney Plus. Whereas in the States, if you want to get the broader spread, my goodness, you have to subscribe to Peacock, you have to subscribe to HBO Max, to ESPN, to Disney Plus, to all these different things. So in a way, we're lucky that we have fewer streaming channels, but they also aggregate a lot of different channels.
Well, Tat, as always, amazing to chat to you. So a couple of streaming updates, some documentaries, and Tat, we're going to catch up again next week.
Okay, cool. I look forward to that. Cheers, Alex.
WhatsApp your voice notes to the Sandton Times Hour
on 084 Sandton. That's 084 726 3866.
On the night of the 14th of April 1912, a ship the world believed unsinkable slipped silently into legend status. Just hours after striking an iceberg in the freezing waters of the North Atlantic, the RMS Titanic would be lost forever, taking with her more than 1,500 souls and leaving behind one of history's most enduring mysteries. But what if part of the story didn't end in the Atlantic? What if echoes of Titanic's final voyage found their way to South Africa? So, you might be surprised to hear that there is a new Titanic museum in South Africa. It's in Johannesburg and Melville. And at the heart of this museum stands an extraordinary Titanic, an 8.7-meter handcrafted tribute created by South African artist Gino Hart. It's the largest Titanic model on the continent and arguably one of the most unique in the world. From the legacy of Captain Edward John Smith to the controversial journey of Quartermaster Robert Hitchens and even the ship's visionary designer Thomas Andrews, we're about to uncover the surprising South African threads stitched into this global tragedy. So as we mark the 114th anniversary of the Titanic disaster this April, we're joined by the man behind it all. It's Gino Hart. He's the owner and curator of the new Titanic Museum in South Africa. And Gino, welcome to the Sandton Times Hour.
Hi, Alex. Thank you so much for having me.
Gino, it's good to have you on. I had the pleasure of visiting the Titanic Museum in Southampton in England just ahead of a cruise ship christening. I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing to do, but I certainly did it. It was a very impressive exhibition. I mean, a lot of people would have seen the James Cameron, Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio movie. That obviously did a lot for the profile of the story. But now to have a similar museum and a story being told in South Africa, what first drew you personally to the story of the RMS Titanic? And how did this go from being sort of a passion, hobby project to something where you wanted other people to share in this?
It was such a funny thing. I was about 14 when I first heard the name Titanic. And it's striking that I was about 14 years old because the Titanic had so many coincidences with the numbers 1, 4, and 14. And throughout the years, I mean, in hindsight, you realize, but wow, there's so many coincidences with it. As a young teenage boy growing up in the Free State, there was very little to do. You were either going to be a farmer or you were going to work at the checkout at the local grocer, or you're going to become a mechanic. And I didn't want to be any of that. So when I heard the name Titanic, it was almost like a past life experience, like I'd been there before, like I'd known these people, I knew the ship, and it was weird. It was like my entire life ceased to exist in color and it went sepia tone from that moment on. And I was just all things Titanic as a kid. I remember going on a family holiday to Durban one December, and I found the paperback book A Night to Remember by Walter Lloyd. I didn't know it at the time, but that particular copy of the book was a gold leaf paperback edition. So it was actually 1958. So it's one of the first ones that came out. And I just got sucked into the story of the Titanic. And I didn't really at the time think I was going to become a Titanic model builder someday, or I was going to live a Titanic life. I didn't think that was going to be the case at all. I just had a fondness for the ship. It kind of happened as it happens with most Titanic collectors. It's a wake-up call. It's a calling to the Titanic. She lures you into her story, and it's an endless parade of information that comes to you over decades, and you can't stop reading about it. You can't stop taking it in documentaries, in videos, and of course, the James Cameron film that just came out in 1997. You had the whole movie, the whole blockbuster Hollywood thing going on as well, which surely awoke a lot of Titanic enthusiasts around the world. But that's kind of where it started with me. And I wanted to bring the Titanic back to life so badly that as a kid, I used to build these cardboard Titanic models, which looked nothing like the Titanic. But I had so much fun building them and sinking them in the Vol Dam or in somebody's swimming pool in their backyard. Or breaking them up to make room for a bigger one. And they just kind of grew and grew and grew over the years. Yeah, it's a child's fascination that evolved into something bigger and something better.
Well, it's quite a remarkable story. I mean, most people would just go to Lego and buy the Lego version of the Titanic. I mean, you've taken it to a whole new level. Plus, you've now opened this museum. Now, how does this work? What can people expect to see at this museum, and when is it open?
Throughout the years, the Titanic has evolved as a model into the Titanic, which of course is the largest Titanic model in South Africa and the 4th largest in the world. She's built with 38 sheets of high-grade aluminium. She's held together with 105,000 pop rivets. And of course, we've toured the entire country with this boat over a period of 5 years. We've done 22 cities in 6 different provinces. And every time I've moved the model, it has rained. And it kind of came to a point where I decided, okay, well, we've done the whole tour thing. Now we need to settle somewhere, and we need to set up residency where I can, have a museum. In fact, I mean, we weren't going to be a museum at all. I just wanted an exhibition space. I just wanted to bring the boat out again, but have it close enough within walking distance from my house so that I can get to the studio and back, without a lot of hassle. I came to 27 Boxes in Melville, Johannesburg, because I always wanted to come to this venue because it's built out of shipping containers. It fits the theme. I got to talking with the management, and I remember kind of like from the day one, I was like, please don't tell me to build something. I don't want to build anything. I don't want to build sets. I don't want to build a museum. I don't want to start up from scratch. I'm kind of in retirement mode. I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to show the boat, and I want to be an artist. The whole idea of the museum came about that, there's so many South African connections to the Titanic, and those are stories that are not being told. And, even with other Titanic museums around the world, they always tell the European story. They always tell the American story. They kind of never focus on the South African bits. And we have a South African survivor from South Africa, which lived to be one of the oldest Titanic survivors in the world. And, it's a story that gets swept under the rug. We kind of built the sets to look like you were on board a giant Titanic model. Then we printed out 150 photos of the Titanic and started telling the South African story and getting all the South African connections in. So ever since we opened the museum, it's been very good. We've received a lot of guests from all over the country, generally out-of-towners, and that's good. Because we're trying to uplift the Melville community with an artistic difference. It's a showpiece that doesn't exist anywhere else. And it's been doing very good for the community as well to have, one of Africa's big six in the midst. The museum operates every Saturday from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. And then there are 3 different classes of passengers. So just like on the real ship, you'd have first class premium passengers coming at 10 a.m. And that involves a guided 45-minute tour through the exhibition. And the Titanic, of course, is the centerpiece of it all. And then, of course, second and third class, 2 different time slots following the first class. Those are generally cheaper tickets, but those are tickets for people who like to wander through the museum at leisure and at own pace. And they get to read on their own, and they get to experience it, take it in personally. So that's a different thing as well for the museum. But we're open every Saturday.
Tell me a little bit more about the South African connections. I believe characters like Edward John Smith and Robert Hitchens are just some of the people who have very intriguing links to South Africa.
Yes, it's one of the most amazing things. People would never say it, that Captain Edward John Smith actually had a South African connection. He and his first officer, William Murdoch, they were both R&R commanders, which meant that they were in the Royal Naval Reserve. And the telltale South African sign is actually on their tunic with their medals. That is the Transport Medal and the R&R Medal distinction, which means that during the Second Boer War, Captain Edward John Smith actually ferried British reinforcement troops to Cape Town and Durban to fight the Boers, which is such an incredible South African connection. Robert Hitchens was the quartermaster of the Titanic at the wheel of the ship when the ship collided with the iceberg in April of 1912. He had a South African connection with the fact that he had a brother who lived in Johannesburg. Now, it's said that he survived in lifeboat number 6 with the famous Molly Brown, the millionaire from Denver, and she'd actually told him to throw him overboard. He wasn't a very likable crew member. He didn't want to go back and help people from, after the disaster. But it's said that he survived because he accidentally turned the ship's wheel the wrong way, which would have been disastrous for the White Star Line if it had been true. It's said that he was sent off to Cape Town to become harbor master here. And the Old Titanic Society South Africa looked into the records, and of course, harbor master doesn't have any records of it. But he was seen in Johannesburg by Edith Brown Hazeman, another South African Titanic survivor, who said she used to bump into Robert Hitchens in South Africa all the time after the Titanic disaster. So it's very interesting that we have all these connections. But it really comes down mostly to Edith Brown Hazeman and her parents, Thomas William Solomon Brown and his wife, Elizabeth, who were on board the Titanic. They were famous hoteliers from Cape Town, and they had some hotels in Worcester, and they were going to America to start up new hotels that side. And of course, they are the strongest South African link to the Titanic because they have some of the most remarkable stories. I mean, they happen to be at all the right places at the right time throughout the story of the Titanic. And then Edith Brown Hazeman, of course, survived with her mother in lifeboat number 14, again with the 1 and the 4. And they came back to South Africa after the disaster, where in 1920, Edith Brown Hazeman had met her husband, Frederick Hazeman, who was an architect. And he had designed in May of 1912 the standard lifeboat operating system that we use on ships today, which is lifeboats being closer to the water level. And of course, when she met him at the Weber Pan Rowing Club just down the road from us in 1920, He was having a ball. There was a bit of a bar, and he pulled her onto his lap, and he said, "Would you like to dance?" And she just got up and slapped him and said, "That's not how you treat a lady." But she must have liked his life worth saving ideas a lot, because they courted for six weeks and then got married. And they had lots of kids. So, it's a story that's intertwined with South Africa in so many ways. And a lot of people don't know about the connections that we have.
Well, I must tell you, these are fascinating stories. You were not going to get these in Southampton, that's for sure. I've been very intrigued chatting to you. I know you guys have also had a 113th anniversary dinner as well. I'm assuming this is something you're probably going to do on an annual basis. We're not going to have too much time to get into that, but what we are going to do is we're going to put the details up of the museum on the Sandton Times website if people are keen to come along on a Saturday and maybe just take a step back in time onto a legendary ship and find out a little bit more. And you can get those details there on sandtontimes.co.za. And Gino Hart, he is the owner and curator of the new Titanic Museum in South Africa. It's been such a pleasure having you on the Sandton Times Hour.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex.
All right, thanks, Gino. And with that, we have to wrap up the show for this week. Feel free to send through your questions and comments. You can email editor@sandtontimes.co.za. You can connect on social media @Sandton Times. Visit the website, www.sandtontimes.co.za. Don't forget that WhatsApp number, 084-726-3866 with your voice notes. And hopefully we can play those out in the coming weeks. That's the exclusive Sandton Times Hour WhatsApp number. As always, make sure you subscribe to the podcast as well and join the growing digital community there. Thank you to all my guests who made time to be on the show this week, as well as the team behind the scenes who pulls it all together and makes sure this happens every single week. Special thank you to you for listening, and God willing, we'll do it all again next week.
Winner of the 2025 Telkom Radio Awards, Best Talk Show.
This is the Sandton Times Hour.